Welcome back, my subscribers. Today, I'm going to talk about my image samples for the Tamron 150 to 500. I had talked about releasing a video going over image samples to give you an idea of what this lens is capable of. So just to kick it off, I have 56 images that, like I mentioned in my previous video, whenever I have a new lens, especially a zoom lens, I like to test it out at the zoo because it's one of the best places to have different lighting environments, animals that move at different speeds that require different levels of tracking. And some subjects are near, some subjects are far. So this is perfect for testing out the image stabilization at the very far 500 millimeter end. So let's get into that. And just as a heads up, I was using the A7RIII for this test. And in a couple of examples, I can't recall which ones, I didn't just use the full frame. I actually cropped in camera so that I could focus on my subject. So that means I was getting an effective around 700 millimeters when you multiply 500 by 1.5 for the APS-C crop. Let me get that number. Yeah, 750 millimeter equivalent. So some of these pictures may be that level of zoom in. Some just might be the regular full frame image, but regardless, you can see the image quality itself. And here we'll start with the Hummingbird Garden. This is at the San Diego Zoo, and it's a fairly new addition or remodel, to better say. And it's a fairly darker area. So for a lens of 150 to 500 that is opening from 5 to 6.7, you would think it's pretty harsh. But as you can see, there's the grain that is there. I think it doesn't look terrible once you edit it and once you grade everything the way you like it. So this is my first image, and right away, this lens is impressive with the details. Most of these were taken at 500, but regardless, I didn't really make note of the millimeter focal length I was at because I was just trying to get the shot I wanted. But most of them are at 500. Here's another flower shot. So there's a lot of detail, and you'll see, yes, there is noise because this one was at a much higher ISO and it was darker in this environment. But when you're printing images for canvas or just regular prints, you won't really notice the noise many times because the viewing distance comes into play as well. So that's just a little tip to not worry too much about noise. Here's another one. This is a fairly large hummingbird. I treated for the noise as much as I could to make it smooth. Same bird. Let's get to a different one. You'll see the detail, even when raising the shadows, is very well preserved in this lens. So even shooting indoors, this one has a bit of motion blur. My biggest concern was that very small aperture because I'm used to shooting at 2.8 or wider. So shooting at f5 to 6.7 feels wrong. But keep in mind, when you're shooting at these really zoomed in focal lengths, you do need more sharpness. Otherwise, nothing would be in focus. You're just too zoomed in. Look at this detail here. It's just, I was really impressed. I've been impressed with Tamron's lenses lately. Any lens that they've produced in the last 2-3 years is just amazing. This is one of my favorites. You could just see all the details. This one was a super crop. I really liked how these feathers look kind of like scales, like shields. So I would say even at 6.7, because you're so zoomed in, you actually get a lot of great bokeh. And a lot of those busy backgrounds do get cleaned up. So this is basically all from the Hummingbird room, all very low light. So I'm going to move on to where there was much better light. I think here my settings were off. And again, it's because I was getting used to the lens. I think I corrected it in some images further along. Let's see where that was at. But this was more of like the user error. And then these are slightly blurry because when you're at the zoo, sometimes you need to shoot through glass, and some glass is curved. So you are going to get some blurry images sometimes. Here's a very good shot. All right. These were outdoor. So this was an animal demonstration. So the cool thing about this one is I was really able to test on the spot, tracking the animals. So here I was shooting in the best case scenario with natural light. Bright sunny day, there was shade, but it was even, so I'm not gonna get anything any blown out highlights or anything like that. You could see the details just so good. That one's not the focus. I think that my focus was on this bird. This one was just wandering. It's a bit sharper. So with a lens like this, you really need to practice, and because of that long focal length, you need to practice which shutter speed you're going to be shooting at. What is your lowest, most comfortable setting, keeping in mind that your subject can move and you do have stabilization, but because of the subject movement or your own movement, you do need to account for that, and you need to figure out what that best shutter speed is. So when the animal was slight in movement, you can see, because I'm not used to shooting with a lens like this, I did have some motion blur. Whereas with a subject that's more static, it didn't matter as much. So this is a great example to see the level of detail we're getting here. It's just great. It's a little possum. Not the prettiest. Those whiskers are all over the place. This one was really interesting. It's one of those wild dogs from near the Australian area. I can't remember what country they're from, but they're from around there. Very similar to the dingo. But look at this detail right here. All of these are at 500 because I was further away. But you're still getting a good separation, as you can see in this background here. So you definitely get that subject pop, even though you're at 6.7 here. This was a very nice dog. And then we got the cat here. This one was just crazy how high it can jump. But you can see it resolves very well with a 42 megapixel sensor. And like you see here, same thing. You are getting very good separation, even at 6.7, because of that 500 millimeter. This is a much tighter crop, but you can still see so much detail. It's amazing. Here we've got the dinosaurs. These are the Galapagos tortoises, and some of these in the zoo are actually 120 years old. So it's just crazy to get to see animals like this. So ancient looking. Here you got the details. I think I was focused on the shell. Here we've got an iguana. These are all outdoors, so this is like the best case scenario for the lighting. If you're indoors, you do got to think about it a little bit. But even at high ISOs, with our cameras today, they resolve very well, and you can control for it very well in Lightroom. This one, this is a super crop. Just to give you a taste of the amount of texture you are getting out of a lens like this, even at 500 with the crop, I think with a crop equivalent, this is close to like 800 millimeters. This was more 500. This might be 500 or 750 when I was using the APS-C crop. Great separation. A little bit of blurred, motion blur there. So this was a very small target. So this was a good test to see how spot on. You see, it's actually on the tree. So it's half of the lizard is actually in focus. This was through a net. So you can kind of see the net here. But I would say it's not too distracting. So you can still get a very clean shot. And you see, I'm getting all the textures of the hairs here, even though I'm shooting through this net that results in the bokeh area. Just great detail. You wouldn't think I was on the other side of the fence by how clear these are. This one looked like it was a piece of wood. You see the resemblance, how some of these animals blend in with their environments. I didn't even see that second one there until a while later. And then you just see the similarity. Look with the wood. It's crazy. All right, these are some of my favorites because they are just adorable. These are the prairie dogs. And when they nap, they are flat on their bellies or on their backs. And they're constantly fidgeting and eating. It's just funny to watch. This was also shot through a net, and you can't really tell. But look how much detail we have here. Let's zoom in on this one. The little ears are funny. Here's a great example. Different angle of the napping. This is my favorite. I added a little bit of effect just to make them stand out a little bit more because they blend in so much with the dirt environment here that I wanted to make them pop a little bit more. So I added a little bit of that like film flare or light leak as we call it with a bit of a zoom focus. So this is actually from the Nick collection. I don't know how many people still use that out there, but every so often I like to use some of those effects or some of those black and white colors because they do look a lot more old school, more filmic. This is the burrowing owl. It's such a small owl. I can't believe I saw it because it blends in so much with the environment and it just stands there staring at you. But these are some of my favorite shots, and I actually printed some of these. But you could see how great detail I'm getting here. And with animal eye autofocus, you're just gonna get amazing shots with this stuff if you're using it for wildlife. This is a super crop of this picture. So if this was at 500, this is, I don't know, maybe 1,000mm equivalent view. Because this is just so cropped in, but I'm still getting so much detail that I could print this out at a very big canvas size. And then finally, here's this image of a turtle. This one was shot through glass, so that's why it has a bit of a water color look. But I still got a lot of sharpness, even shooting through those challenging obstacles there. So overall, a takeaway I want to share by showing you these images is just the color rendition. I mean, obviously you're going to edit them, but it captures colors and details of every animal, every texture in such a great way. And for the price, what you're getting, I think, is so worth it because other lenses like the G Master level or going beyond that, like the 100 to 400 or even specialized lenses like the 400 f 2.8, you are going to get amazing images, but look at the size of those. One of the best things about this lens is not just its reach, it is how compact it is because it is not an internal zoom. So when it's closed in at 150, if you watch my previous video, it is slightly less longer than a regular 70 to 200. But you're getting so much more reach. So it's just great to travel with. And I feel like you won't feel like it's a burden to pull this out. As I was walking through the zoo with this lens, I wasn't tired of carrying it. I feel like it was similar, if not the same, as carrying a 70 to 200 2.8. So if that's a concern you have, this is a super easy lens to just walk around with. I never used a monopod or a tripod or anything to stabilize my shot. I just relied on practicing to stay steady, proper shutter speed. And I think that's just the biggest deal for me using this lens, that you could see the difference from the first shots to the last ones. I got a lot more winners at the end because I cranked up the shutter to compensate. But again, I had more light to play with. But even if you don't, I feel like you don't need to be afraid of cranking up the shutter speed, because you could just clean it up so well now. You have to decide where that level of comfort is for you, noise for your ISO level. But other than that, this is a winner lens. So I just wanted to share these images. And these are my favorite ones from that trip that I made in May. I had more, but again, trial and error. You pick your best shots. And these are my best shots, and with the colors the way I like them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It gives you a real life test. I'm not obviously in the wild, but because of the different lighting, the different animals that I need to, that I'm trying to photograph here, they all come with different challenges that actually do end up showing you how this lens performs. And then sometimes it's user error, like here where I missed my focus. But again, it's a small target, but you know what I mean. And then just to get into it, if you look through my channel, if you look for my shorts, you will see some examples of video that I shot with the 150 to 500, 50 to 500. Handheld, just relying on holding steady, shooting at 120 frames per second, and relying on the image stabilization in the lens. You can see I moved a lot on the first shot. With good practice, or just with a monopod, you can get some really good video. This was shot on HLG2. So you do see some jerky movement. That's again because I was using it handheld. As aggressive. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you like the images you saw, and if you think this would be a lens that you would use or would want to try out, go ahead and comment below what you would use it for, because it's not just for wildlife. You could also use it for sports. You could technically use it for portraits if you needed to. Usually this isn't going to be one of your top choices for that, but it's not, doesn't mean you can't do it. For video, if you're doing sports photos, you can get some amazing sports video with this lens. I'm just imagining the possibilities. So don't feel like you have to be in Africa on a safari to enjoy this lens. Check it out. Thanks for watching.